2,000 years before the world found peace. Before demon lords had names. Before gods began to fall. A single question was born. What if Rimuru became the ancient demon lord 2,000 years ago? He did not return as a hero. He did not come to save the past. He returned as a silent disaster. In an era soaked in magic and blood, his existence alone would bend fate. And history would never recover. Tempest had been peaceful for over 2 centuries. The wars were long gone, the threats of Yuki and Ivaraj were nothing but echoes in history, and Rimuru had evolved far beyond what anyone could have imagined, even beyond the supreme deity he had once been considered. The city itself, the forests, and the nations of the world thrived under his guidance, and yet something was missing. Rimuru sat slouched at his office desk, piles of paperwork stacked like miniature towers around him. His golden eyes scanned the latest reports from allied nations, economic summaries, tax adjustments, and petitions from every corner of the world. He poked at the papers with a bored expression, tapping one corner with a finger and letting out a long, dramatic sigh. Why does it have to be like this? He muttered aloud, resting his chin on one hand. 200 years of peace, and this is what I get. Endless paperwork. Seriously. A soft, familiar voice answered from somewhere inside his mind. Because, Master, it's your responsibility. You cannot delegate eternity's affairs to me, Seal said, tone flat but tinged with amusement. Rimuru groaned, throwing his head back. Seal, seriously, you could help. Just a little. Even you would admit this is boring, right? Sitting here all day, reading reports about taxes and treaties, nothing fun at all. I am well aware of your boredom, Master, Seal replied, undeterred. But this is your work, not mine. You cannot simply shirk responsibility because you are bored. I know, I just it's so tedious. 200 years of peace, not a single enemy, not a single fight, nothing interesting happening at all. And now, paperwork. Rimuru flopped forward onto the desk dramatically, papers scattering around him. I didn't evolve into a supreme deity, the ruler of Tempest, to fill out forms all day. You did evolve to maintain peace, Master. This is part of it, Seal said, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Yeah, I know. Rimuru waved a hand, sitting back up. I'm just bored, so bored. Can you even imagine? No danger, no excitement, nothing for fun. He tapped a pen on the desk, eyes drifting toward the window where sunlight bathed the city in golden warmth. Maybe if I could go back in time, you know. Do it all over again but differently. Maybe then I'd have some fun. There was a pause in Ciel's response. You realize how absurd that is, yes. Time travel is not simply a tool for entertainment. I know, it's a dumb idea, just a daydream, Rimuru muttered, sighing again. But Ciel's next words stopped him in mid-thought. Actually, it is possible. Rimuru froze, one eyebrow twitching. Wait, what? Using the ultimate skill. Yog-Sothoth, god of space and time, within the ultimate skill. Shub-Niggurath, Lord of Harvest, it is feasible to manipulate temporal threads to travel into the past, Ciel explained calmly. Rimuru blinked, then nearly fell off his chair. Are you serious? Like I could actually go back in time? Not just daydream about it? Yes, Master, Ciel said, a hint of smug satisfaction in her voice. But there is a catch. Altering this timeline directly could erase everything you have built here. I cannot allow that. Rimuru sat up straight, thoughts racing. Wait, so if I go back, the current Tempest could vanish. All the people, the peace, that's too risky. Correct, but there is another way, Ciel said, tilting the mental head in her usual smug way. We can create an alternate reality. You may travel to the past in that reality, leaving a parallel existence here, a clone of yourself, so the original timeline remains untouched. Rimuru's eyes sparkled, his tail swishing with excitement. You're telling me I can go back, do everything all over again, but differently, without risking anything here? That's amazing. He leaned back in his chair, spinning slowly. Ciel, you're the best. Of course I am, Ciel said, clearly relishing the praise. The best master deserves the best manas. Praise me more. Rimuru laughed, shaking his head, a playful grin spreading across his face. You really are, seriously, the best partner I could ever ask for. I don't know what I'd do without you. Damn right I am, Ciel replied with mock pride. Rimuru's eyes gleamed with excitement as he leaned forward. Okay, let's do it. Make the clone first, leave it here to manage things and then I go back. He tapped his chin thoughtfully. I want it to be playful, fun, maybe even a little mischievous. The clone should be me, but me with a little extra attitude. You know, to mess with people while I'm gone. Understood, Master, Seal said smoothly. I will create the clone according to your specifications. Within moments, a shimmering light appeared beside Rimuru, forming into an exact copy of him. Same golden eyes, same sky blue hair, same slouched but confident posture. The clone stretched exaggeratedly, yawning dramatically. Well, hello, me, Rimuru said, grinning. I like the attitude, already. Don't get too cocky, though. You'll have to deal with all the paperwork while I'm gone. The clone smirked. Oh, I plan to. But I might adjust a few things here and there. Keep things interesting. Rimuru laughed, rolling his eyes. Of course you would. You're already causing trouble. I like it. Hey, maybe we can play a few pranks on the citizens while I'm gone. I mean, what's the point of a clone if it's not slightly more fun than the original? The clone leaned against the desk, mimicking Rimuru perfectly. Exactly my thought. Don't worry, dude. I'll keep things lively. I might even make your work seem exciting. Rimuru shook his head, laughing at the ridiculousness. I can't believe I'm talking to myself, but this is actually really fun. I don't know if I want to leave now. You're kind of hilarious. Master, you need to focus. Ciel's voice cut in, slightly sharp. Rimuru's ears twitched as he blinked. Oh, yeah, almost forgot, he said with a playful grin. He leaned back in his chair, glancing between the clone and paperwork, feeling the thrill of possibility buzzing in his veins. For the first time in centuries, Rimuru felt truly alive. Rimuru leaned back in his chair, he watched his clone stretch and yawn dramatically. Papers still littered the desk, but for the first time in centuries, they didn't seem to matter. The excitement of possibility hummed in his veins, a sharp contrast to the tedious monotony of paperwork he had been drowning in. Master, let's proceed with the creation of the alternate reality, Ciel said, her voice calm but with a hint of anticipation. Yeah, let's do it, Rimuru said, nudging a stray paper aside. I trust you, Ciel. You know how I like things. Of course, Master. Beginning now, she replied, her tone smooth and precise. Around Rimuru, the air began to shimmer and ripple as Ciel's skill wove its invisible threads through reality itself. Light bent, faint shapes twisted in and out of existence, and the very atmosphere seemed to hum with power. Rimuru could feel the energy brushing against his skin, tickling, warm, alive. The clone watched silently, tail swishing lazily. Whoa, this is wow, you really don't see this every day, huh? He said, grinning. Exactly, Rimuru replied with a chuckle. And we get to mess around with it. Best part, no paperwork, no rules. Just pure fun. Minutes passed or maybe hours, Rimuru wasn't sure, and finally the shimmering settled. Ciel's voice cut through the hum of energy. Alternate reality established. Now, Master, how far back would you like to go? Rimuru rubbed his chin thoughtfully, looking at the clone. Let's see. Maybe just my original reincarnation, nothing too crazy. Keep it simple. The clone smirked, leaning against the desk. Dude, I have a better idea. Why not go, like way back? I dunno, 2,000 years before you were reincarnated. Rimuru blinked, then laughed softly. That actually sounds perfect. Way more fun than just repeating the last reincarnation. You know what? Let's do it. That would align with significant events, Ciel said, her tone serious, informative. Around that time, Milam Nava goes on a rampage after her pet dragon dies. Her parents, Velda Nava and Lucia, are killed by the soldiers of the Super Sorcery Kingdom, led by Jahil, who possesses the body of Kogaliz's father. This would be the period of greatest instability, perfect for exploration. Rimuru nodded slowly, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. The clone mirrored him. Yeah, that's the one, Rimuru said finally. 2,000 years before my original reincarnation. Time's perfect. Processing now, Master, Ciel said, her voice calm but filled with an almost palpable focus. The air shimmered and twisted again, reality bending under her skill. He leaned back in the chair, taking a deep breath. One last thing, he murmured softly, voice barely audible over the hum of energy. This time let's have fun. Yes, master, Seal said, her tone almost warm, almost fond. As you wish. And then the light enveloped him, white and blinding, and his consciousness began to fade. The world of Tempest, the clone, the office, all of it blurred, melting into streaks of color and sensation as he felt himself being pulled through time. For the first time in centuries, Rimuru smiled. The white light faded slowly. Not all at once, more like it peeled away, layer by layer, until sensation returned. Wind brushed against Rimuru's face first. Cool, fresh. Then the feeling of ground beneath him, soft but solid. Rimuru groaned quietly and opened his eyes. Blue sky, wide, endless. He blinked once, twice, then quickly pushed himself up on one elbow. All around him stretched a massive plain. Tall grass swayed gently, rolling like waves under the breeze. A few scattered trees stood here and there, not dense, not wild, just enough to break the openness. The air felt heavy, thick in a way he hadn't felt in centuries. Rimuru sat up fully, and then he froze. Whoa! The moment he focused, it hit him properly. Magicules everywhere, not just present, but dense. Thick enough that it felt like breathing warm water instead of air. Okay, yeah, that's not normal, he muttered, eyes widening slightly. That's way too much magicules. He slowly stood up, looking around again, more carefully this time. Nothing hostile. No monsters rushing him. No strange figures. Just land, sky, wind, and overwhelming magical density. Seal, he asked. Did it work? There was no delay in her response. Yes, master. Time travel has been completed successfully. Rimuru let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Good. That's good. I was about to panic for a second. He rolled his shoulders, testing his body. Everything felt fine. No pain. No lag. Power was stable. If anything, he felt lighter. But seriously, he said, gesturing vaguely around him, what's with the magicules? This is insane. Even Tempest at its peak wasn't like this. That is expected, Seal replied calmly. In this era, Veldanava and Lucia are still alive. Their existence alone raises the ambient magicule density of the world. Rimuru stiffened. Ah, right. That made sense. Too much sense. So this is before everything goes wrong, he said quietly. Before Milam loses her dragon. Before her parents die. Correct, Seal confirmed. I adjusted the arrival point to approximately 1 month before the incident. Rimuru's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked out over the plains again. 1 month. That wasn't a lot of time. Not much at all. That's kinda heavy, he muttered. Dropping me in right before all that. You requested a meaningful era, Seal replied. This period has the highest potential for change. Rimuru scratched the back of his head, a nervous smile forming. Yeah, guess I did. He stood there for a moment longer, letting it sink in. The wind, the grass, the magicules pressing against his senses. This wasn't some constructed illusion or simulation. This was real, a whole different world. Maybe, he said slowly, this could actually turn into something good. That depends entirely on your actions, master. Gee, thanks for the pressure, Rimuru said dryly, then laughed softly. He glanced down at himself, then around again. So where exactly am I right now? You are currently located on land that will later become the Kingdom of Bloomend, Seal answered. Rimuru blinked. Wait, seriously? Yes. He looked around again, this time with that knowledge in mind. The wide plains, the gentle slope of the land, the way the wind moved through the grass. He said. That explains it. Explains what? The feeling, Rimuru replied. It feels familiar, but also not. Like I've been here before but not yet. Temporal recognition is common in individuals with your level of perception, Seal said. Your reaction is within expected parameters. Yeah, he said, waving it off. Still feels weird, though. He exhaled slowly, then stretched both arms above his head with a lazy groan. All right, Rimuru said, standing around won't get me anywhere. He looked at the sky one more time, then down at the land ahead. Well, since I'm here, he said casually, first thing I need is a place to stay. No way I'm sleeping out in the open. Agreed, Seal replied immediately. Rimuru glanced to the side, even though he knew she wasn't physically there. Got any suggestions? Yes, Seal said, I recommend establishing a hidden base within the Jura forest. Rimuru's lips curved into a small smile. Of course you would say that. The location is optimal, Seal continued. High magical concentration, natural concealment, and future strategic relevance. It is also the land where Tempest will eventually be founded. Yeah, Rimuru said softly. That place again. There was something comforting about the idea. Familiar ground, even if it wasn't his yet. A place tied deeply to everything he built later. I like it, he said. Feels right. Shall I teleport you there? Seal asked. Rimuru nodded without hesitation. Yeah, let's do it. He took one last look around the plains, the quiet, untouched land of a world that hadn't broken yet. All right, he muttered. New era, new start. Beginning teleportation sequence, Seal said, her voice shifting into a more mechanical, AI-like tone. Coordinates locked. Spatial anchor confirmed. Magical synchronization complete. A faint glow formed beneath Rimuru's feet. Teleportation in progress. The air around him warped slightly. Transfer successful. And in the next instant, Rimuru vanished. Rimuru reappeared with a soft distortion in the air. For half a second, everything felt normal. Then, what? He froze. Trees. Trees everywhere. Not just tall ones. Thick ones. Old ones. Their trunks were massive, roots crawling over the ground like living things. Branches overlapped so tightly that sunlight barely slipped through, breaking into thin beams that barely reached the forest floor. This is, Rimuru slowly turned in place. Way denser than I remember. The Jura forest, but not the Jura he knew. This one felt raw, untouched, wild in a way that made his instincts itch. Magicals pressed in from every direction, alive and restless, layered with countless presences hidden among the trees. Yeah, okay, he muttered. This is Jura forest at its purest, huh? Something shifted nearby, not aggressive but aware. Rimuru's senses immediately picked it up. Monsters. A lot of them. Strong ones too. Watching. Listening. Feeling him out. His shoulders stiffened. Ah, wait, he said quietly. That's not good. Your concern is valid, Seal replied calmly. I don't want to accidentally erase half the forest just by standing here, Rimuru whispered. Seal, suppress my aura. Like hard suppress. There was the briefest pause. Master, Seal said, tone flat, almost amused. Your aura is already suppressed to the absolute minimum. Rimuru blinked. Huh, if it were not, she continued, nearly every lifeform within several kilometers would have already collapsed. Oh, he slowly exhaled. Okay, that's terrifying. You are welcome, Seal said. Rimuru gave a small, awkward laugh. Thanks for that, seriously. The forest seemed to relax slightly after that, or maybe it was just him imagining it. Either way, no monsters rushed him. No sudden attacks. Just quiet observation. All right, he muttered. First crisis avoided. He looked around again, eyes scanning the terrain. So this is where I set up shop, huh? Correct. Rimuru nodded. Okay, I need a base. Somewhere safe. Somewhere hidden. Somewhere cool. He paused, eyes lighting up a little. I'm thinking underground. Like, super deep. Badass hidden base. Nobody finds it unless I want them to. There was silence for exactly 1 second. Then, no. Rimuru frowned. No, that would be inefficient, Seal said. I recommend a mansion. Rimuru stared ahead. A what? A surface-level mansion, Seal continued smoothly, with subterranean expansion and layered barriers. Hidden from perception, detection, and spatial awareness. Rimuru turned sharply. Seal, this is Jura forest. I'm trying to hide, not start a tourist attraction. Your argument lacks logic, she replied. A properly concealed structure on the surface is less suspicious than an underground void that disrupts natural ley lines. That's not the point, Rimuru shot back. Underground bases are cool. They're classic. You don't see the hero's secret lair just sitting out in the open. You are not a hero, Seal said calmly. Ouch. Nor are you subtle when emotionally invested, she added. Rimuru crossed his arms. Listen, underground means safer, stronger, harder to attack. Incorrect, Seal replied instantly. It means limited expansion, reduced spatial flexibility, and unnecessary structural stress. A mansion allows superior optimization. A mansion, Rimuru repeated. In the middle of Jura forest. Correct. Which nobody can see. Correct. Or find. Correct. Rimuru squinted. That sounds fake. Your disbelief does not alter feasibility, Seal replied. Rimuru groaned. Why do you always make it sound like I'm the dumb one? Because in this discussion, she said, you are. Wow. He paced a few steps, hands on his head. Okay. But underground bases are way cooler. Coolness is subjective, Seal said. Efficiency is not. That's not fair. Neither is poor planning. Rimuru stopped walking. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Immensely. He sighed deeply. So you're saying mansion on the surface but not really on the surface? Yes. And underground parts too. Yes. And ridiculous barriers. Naturally. Rimuru hesitated. I hate that this makes sense. Conclusion reached, Seal said with clear satisfaction. He dropped his shoulders. Fine. You win. Again. As expected, Seal replied proudly. Your compliance is appreciated. You didn't have to say it like that. I absolutely did. Rimuru shook his head, smiling despite himself. All right. Do it your way. There was a brief pause. Very well, Seal said. Shall I construct it manually? Rimuru blinked. Manually. No, that sounds like a pain. What do you mean? She didn't answer. Instead, initiating relocation structure process, Seal said, her voice shifting into that familiar AI-like cadence. Target parameters set. Spatial overlap confirmed. Subspace access granted. Seal. Rimuru asked. What are you doing? The ground beneath him didn't shake but the space did. Something folded. Then, boom. A structure simply appeared. No explosion. No buildup. One moment, forest. Next moment mansion. Rimuru's eyes went wide. What? It wasn't flashy. No towering spires. No golden nonsense. Just a clean, simple mansion. Stone walls. Wooden accents. Calm. Almost humble. But it didn't belong there, and that somehow made it more unsettling. That, Rimuru said slowly, was not normal. Construction complete, Seal announced. All barriers active. He stared at it. How did you even do that? I utilized the skill. Tiny world, Seal replied. Originally belonging to Ramirez, Queen of Spirits. Rimuru turned sharply. Tiny world. That thing makes pocket spaces. Correct, she said. I constructed the structure entirely within subspace, then relocated it into external reality. That's cheating. It is efficient. Rimuru rubbed his temples. My brain just short-circuited. You are welcome. He let out a breath, half laughing. You're way too smart for this skill. I will accept that compliment. That was not a compliment. Your intent is irrelevant, Seal replied smugly. Rimuru looked back at the mansion, then up at the trees, then sighed. I really can't win against you, can I? Correct, Seal said cheerfully. And somehow despite everything Rimuru smiled. Rimuru stood there for another second, staring at the mansion like it might suddenly apologize for existing. Yeah, he muttered. I'm just gonna accept this now. He stepped forward and pushed the front door open. It swung smoothly, no creak, no resistance. The moment he crossed the threshold, Rimuru stopped. Oh, from the outside, the place looked simple. Clean, sure, but nothing crazy. Just stone and wood, quiet and unassuming. Inside, though, completely different story. The space opened up wider than it should have. High ceiling, polished stone floors that reflected soft light, walls lined with warm wood and subtle designs carved into them. Nothing flashy, no gold everywhere, no over-the-top decorations. But everything felt expensive, comfortable, like someone designed it knowing exactly what he'd like. Rimuru slowly walked in, eyes drifting around. Okay, yeah, this is nice. Of course it is, Seal replied calmly. I optimized the interior based on your preferences. My preferences? Rimuru raised an eyebrow. Since when do I have luxury preferences? You favor open spaces, natural lighting, minimal clutter, and comfort over ornamentation, she said. This qualifies as simple luxury. That sounds way too accurate, he said, glancing at a wide window that looked out into the forest except no one outside could see in. I feel exposed. You are not, Seal replied immediately. Every barrier is active. Rimuru walked further inside, peeking into different rooms as he went. A large living area with soft couches. A dining space that felt unnecessarily big for one person. Shelves already stocked with books he didn't remember asking for. Did you add books? He asked. Yes, I don't even read that much. Statistically inaccurate, Seal replied. You read frequently when bored. Okay. Rude, but fair. He wandered down a hallway and stopped when he reached what was very clearly a bedroom. Large bed, simple design, soft lighting. Rimuru stared at it for a second. Wow, he said quietly. This is way better than sleeping in a cave. Your standards were previously low, Seal commented. Hey, caves have character. They also have moisture problems. Rimuru laughed under his breath and turned away, continuing to explore. Training room, storage areas, a space that definitely looked like it could handle ridiculous amounts of magic without breaking. You planned way too far ahead, he said. That is my function. He eventually circled back to the main hall and stopped in the middle of it, hands on his hips. All right, Rimuru said. I admit it. Mansion idea wins. Acknowledged, Seal replied, clearly pleased. You may praise me. I'm not doing that. Noted. Internal satisfaction remains unchanged. Rimuru shook his head, smiling. He moved toward a couch and dropped into it, sinking in comfortably. Man, he said, staring up at the ceiling. This really feels like starting over. In a sense, it is, Seal said. He was quiet for a moment. 1 month, Rimuru muttered. That's all I've got before everything starts going to hell. Correct, Seal replied. Rimuru propped his arms behind his head. I should probably do something important. Prevent disasters. Save people. You know, responsible stuff. That would be logical, Seal said. But, Rimuru continued, a slow grin forming, I also kinda wanna do something stupid. There was a pause. Define. Stupid, Seal said carefully. Rimuru sat up slightly. You know, fun stupid. That is not a useful clarification. He chuckled. Come on. I've got a whole month. If I don't mess with at least one powerful person, that'd be a waste. You are implying interference with a high-level entity, Seal said. Yep. Specify target. Rimuru's grin widened. Guy Crimson. There was silence. Longer than usual. Rimuru blinked. Seal. I am processing, she replied. He waited, already amused. You know he should be in the ice continent right now, right? Hanging out in that ice castle with Velzard. Rain and misery around too. Correct, Seal said slowly. Rimuru leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Exactly. Perfect timing. He's bored. I'm bored. Match made in heaven. Your reasoning is flawed, Seal said. Engaging Guy Crimson at this point in time poses huge risks. Yeah, Rimuru waved it off. I know. That's why I'm not fighting him. There was another pause. Then what? Seal asked. Rimuru's eyes sparkled. I was thinking, he said casually, we sneak in, mess with his appearance, and leave. Elaborate. Rimuru smirked. Pink hair. Silence. And, he added, make his clothes super girly. The silence stretched. Rimuru tilted his head. You there. I am recalculating, Seal said. He burst out laughing. No way. Did I actually break you with that one? The probability of survival remains high, she said slowly. The probability of retaliation is concerning. But worth it, Rimuru said instantly. Another pause. Then, approved. Rimuru froze. Wait, what? The psychological impact would be significant, Seal continued. Observing Guy Crimson's reaction may provide valuable data. You just want to see his face, Rimuru said. That is irrelevant, she replied. He stared at the floor for a second, then grinned like a kid who just got permission to do something illegal. I can't believe you agreed. I am adapting, Seal said calmly. Rimuru stood up, excitement buzzing through him. All right, decision made. He cracked his knuckles. Okay then, let's do it, Seal. As you wish, Master. Meanwhile, Guy Crimson sat on his throne. That alone already said a lot. The throne itself was carved from deep ice crystal, jagged yet refined, radiating authority and power. It was the kind of seat that made lesser beings tremble just by looking at it. The air around it was cold, sharp, heavy with demonic pressure. And sitting on it, Guy Crimson looked bored out of his mind. He rested his cheek against one hand, elbow propped lazily on the armrest, red eyes half-lidded and unfocused. One leg crossed over the other, fingers tapping slowly, rhythmically, against the throne. Tap, 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 tch, he muttered quietly. Silence filled the massive chamber. No attendants. No rain. No misery. No Velzard. Just empty space and the echo of his own thoughts. This era is dull, he said flatly. No wars. No interesting challengers. No chaos worth paying attention to. Even the world itself felt like it was dragging its feet, waiting for something to happen. Guy exhaled slowly and leaned back, staring up at the ceiling. Boring. Then, something brushed against his skin. It was subtle, barely there, like a faint breeze passing through the room, cool and fleeting. Guy's eyes sharpened instantly. He straightened slightly and glanced to the side, then behind him. His gaze swept across the chamber, sharp and precise, searching for disturbance. Nothing. No shift in magicules. No presence. No hostile intent. He frowned. Wind, he muttered. That shouldn't have been possible. This chamber was sealed, isolated from the outside world. No natural airflow reached this place. Guy stared for another second longer, then clicked his tongue. TCH. Must be nothing. He leaned back again, returning to his deadpan, bored posture. Tap, tap, tap. The door to the chamber suddenly opened. Guy didn't look. Guy, have you seen? Velzard stepped inside. Her voice stopped mid-sentence. She froze. Her eyes locked onto Guy. There was a long, heavy silence. Guy felt it immediately. What? He said flatly. Why are you staring? Velzard didn't answer right away. Her expression was something else entirely. Flat, cold, disappointed. The kind of look that didn't even need words. Oh, she said finally. I didn't know you were into those kinds of things. Guy frowned. What are you talking about? She didn't respond. She just stared at him harder. Velzard, Guy said slowly, irritation creeping into his tone. Explain. Before she could answer, footsteps echoed behind her. 2 figures entered the chamber. One was short, with bright blue hair. Her expression lazy and carefree as always. Rain. The other was taller, with long green hair neatly styled, posture straight, eyes sharp and professional. Misery. They stepped in, and both froze instantly, dead, still. Rain's mouth slowly opened. Misery stopped mid-step. The silence stretched. Then Misery sighed, a long, exhausted sigh. Guy-sama, she said calmly, adjusting her glasses. May I ask if there is a reason you are dressed like that today? Guy's irritation spiked. Dressed like what? He snapped. Rain's shoulders began to shake. Misery continued, tone perfectly neutral. Normally, you inform us before making drastic aesthetic changes. What are you talking about? Guy growled. Rain suddenly clamped both hands over her mouth. PFF'd. Guy turned sharply. Rain. She broke. Ha ha ha. Rain collapsed forward, clutching her stomach as she burst into uncontrollable laughter, tears forming in her eyes. Oh my God. Lord Guy. Ha ha ha. Rain. Guy roared. She rolled onto the floor, laughing harder. I can't. This is the best thing I've seen in centuries. Answer me. Guy shouted, standing up from his throne, demonic aura flaring. Misery calmly turned to Velzard. May I ask a mirror, Lady Velzard? She said. Velzard sighed deeply, looking more disappointed than ever, and snapped her fingers. A tall mirror of ice formed instantly in her hand. She handed it to Misery without another word. Misery walked forward, heels clicking softly against the floor, and stopped in front of Guy. Please look, she said. Guy narrowed his eyes, then glanced at the mirror. And froze. His reflection stared back at him. His long crimson hair, pink, not light red, not tinted, pink, soft, bright, absolutely unmistakably pink. His cheeks were dusted with makeup, a faint rosy blush spread across them, giving his normally sharp features an almost gentle look. And his clothes. Guy's breath caught. He was wearing what could only be described as an elegant, feminine outfit. Frilled fabric, decorative ribbons, a fitted bodice with flowing sleeves. Delicate patterns stitched into the material. It was unmistakably women's clothing. The chamber exploded into chaos. What the hell is this? Guy shouted, voice cracking in pure rage and humiliation. Rain slammed her fist into the floor, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. Guy-sama, your face. I'm dying. This is not funny. Guy snarled, ripping the mirror out of Misery's hands and hurling it across the room, where it shattered against the wall. Velzard stared at him one last time. Unbelievable, she said coldly. I expected better. She turned away. Fix yourself, she added flatly. This is embarrassing. And with that, she walked out of the chamber, leaving behind absolute destruction. Rain was still laughing, tears streaming down her face. Oh no, please, don't ever change back. Rain, I will kill you, Guy roared. Misery pinched the bridge of her nose. This will take hours to repair, she muttered. Guy stood there, fists clenched, face burning with rage and humiliation, as Rain continued to laugh on the floor and Misery watched with deadpan resignation. High above the castle, invisible, untraceable, Rimuru floated in the air, barely containing his laughter. He was clutching his stomach, shoulders shaking. Oh my God, he whispered. Seal, did you see his face? I recorded it, Seal replied calmly. For future reference. Rimuru snorted. You're evil. You approved the plan, she said. He wiped a tear from his eye. Worth it. Totally worth it. Guy Crimson's emotional state is currently unstable, Seal added. Success rate. Absolute. Rimuru grinned. Yeah, let's leave before he figures it out. Teleportation ready, Seal said. Rimuru glanced down one last time, hearing Guy's furious shouting echo through the castle. Best month ever, he muttered. Absolutely, Master. Guy. Who the fuck. And with that they vanished. Weeks later, the Jura forest breathed quietly. Deep inside it, far deeper than any monster territory, far beyond where even ancient beasts usually wandered, something didn't quite fit. The trees bent strangely around an empty space, roots avoiding it without knowing why. Magicules flowed smoothly past the area, never lingering, never reacting. Layer after layer of barriers sat there instead. Not loud ones, not aggressive, soft, smart, perfectly tuned. A humble mansion rested in the center, hidden so completely that even the forest itself treated it like a blank spot. No killing intent, no pressure, just calm. Inside, things were comfortable. Rimuru lounged on a wide couch, legs stretched out, posture relaxed in a way only someone with absolutely zero responsibilities right now could manage. A warm cup of tea rested in his hand, steam rising slowly as he took a lazy sip. Ah, he sighed, this is nice. Weeks had passed since that incident. Weeks since Guy Crimson's life had been absolutely ruined for a solid afternoon. Rimuru's lips curved into a soft grin without him even trying. He leaned his head back against the couch and stared at the ceiling, eyes unfocused as the memory replayed on its own. Guy's face. The confusion. The mirror. The pink hair. Totally worth it, Rimuru muttered. He took another sip of tea, smiling to himself. I mean, yeah, probably messed with the balance of the world a little. Maybe scarred him emotionally for a few centuries. But still, worth it. Since then, Rimuru hadn't really done much of anything. And he was proud of that. Sleeping, wandering the mansion, eating when he felt like it, existing peacefully while the world moved toward disaster on its own schedule. For the first time in a very long while, he wasn't rushing. I could get used to this, he said quietly. You have been inactive for 17 consecutive days, Seal noted calmly. Rimuru hummed. Living the dream. You have also been avoiding future-related decision-making, she added. Living the dream, he repeated. There was a brief pause. Then Ciel's tone shifted, still calm, but more focused. Report update, Master. Rimuru opened one eye. Yeah, the Super Sorcery Kingdom is preparing to act, Ciel said. Based on projected movements and mana fluctuations, their operation will begin in approximately 1 week. Rimuru straightened slightly, interest returning. Mountain of Stars, he asked. Correct. He exhaled slowly. Right on schedule, huh. The Mountain of Stars. Milam's home. The place where everything broke. Where her parents died. Where her dragon was killed. Where the world learned what an unchecked demon lord looked like. Rimuru stared into his tea, watching the surface ripple faintly. So once that happens, he said quietly, Milam snaps. Yes, Seal confirmed. Probability of uncontrollable rampage exceeds 99%. Rimuru nodded. Figures. Calming Milam wasn't the hard part. He knew that. He could stop her, talk to her, fight her if he had to. That wasn't what bothered him. What bothered him was before that. Velda Nava, Rimuru murmured. And Lucia. Seal stayed silent, letting him think. In the original timeline, everything spiraled. Yuki, Mana's Velda, the recreation of a god. Ivaraj breaking free, an apocalypse layered on top of another apocalypse. Rimuru leaned back, staring at the ceiling again. If I remove all the obstacles early, he said slowly, this whole mess might never happen. Correct, Seal replied. But, Rimuru continued, if I mess too much with causality this timeline could snap in half. Also correct, he sighed. Yeah, thought so. Doing nothing led to disaster. Doing too much could be worse. Annoying, he muttered. There was a short pause. Then, suggestion, Seal said. Rimuru tilted his head slightly. Let's hear it. Instead of allowing Velda Nava and Lucia's souls to disperse, she said evenly, why not collect them? Rimuru froze. Collect them. Yes, Seal continued. Their souls are critical nodes. Removing them from the cycle would prevent multiple future divergences while preserving their existence. Rimuru's fingers tightened around the cup. That's, he trailed off. A good idea. Too good. He lowered the tea slowly, resting it on the table. Velda Nava isn't just anyone, Rimuru said quietly. He's the first true dragon. The creator god. The system itself. I am aware, Seal replied. And Lucia, he added, she's human. Was. But she's still his wife. Milam's mother. He rubbed his face with one hand. That's not something I can just treat like a game piece. Your hesitation is logical, Seal said. However, your capacity to handle such entities already exceeds prior constraints. Rimuru let out a short laugh. You make it sound way easier than it is. I am designed to do so, she replied. He leaned back again, staring at the ceiling for a long moment. It's tempting, he admitted. Really tempting. Fixing the root instead of the branches. Saving Milam before she ever breaks. Stopping Yuki before he even dreams of becoming a god. Preventing Ivaraj's release entirely. But if I rush this, Rimuru said softly, I might mess up something I can't undo. Silence filled the room, not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. Finally, Rimuru sighed and picked his tea back up. We've still got a week, he said. No need to decide everything today. Agreed, Seal replied. He smiled faintly. Let's think about it slowly. No panic, no rushing. Understood, she said. Rimuru took another sip, warmth spreading through him as the mansion stayed quiet, hidden, untouched. Outside, the world kept moving toward chaos. Inside, time felt like it had paused. And for now that was enough. At night, night settled over the Jura forest without a sound. The kind of night that felt deep, old. The moon hung high above the canopy, pale and calm, its light slipping through gaps in the leaves and painting the forest floor in soft silver. Crickets chirped somewhere far away. Everything else was quiet, too quiet. Inside the mansion, Rimuru had been lying on the couch again, staring at absolutely nothing, until boredom finally won. Yeah, nope, he muttered, sitting up. I'm gonna lose my mind if I stay inside any longer. He stood, stretched lazily, then made his way toward the entrance. The door opened without a sound, barriers parting just enough to let him step through. Cool night air brushed against his face. Rimuru walked a few steps out, hands in his pockets, and looked up at the moon. Man, he said softly, this place is way too peaceful at night. You are dissatisfied, Seal asked. Not dissatisfied, Rimuru replied. Just restless, I guess. He wandered a bit farther, stopping at the edge of the clearing where the forest thickened again. Even with all the monsters nearby, everything stayed still. Respectful, careful, funny, he continued, gaze drifting. Back then, nights like this always meant something bad was about to happen. Your current perception associates stillness with impending conflict, Seal said. That is a result of prolonged exposure to crisis-based environments. Rimuru snorted. Wow, thanks for diagnosing me. You are welcome. He chuckled quietly, then leaned against nothing in particular, arms crossed. 1 week, he said. That's all we've got before things kick off. Correct. And I still don't really feel like sitting still anymore, he added. Seal didn't answer right away. Rimuru tilted his head. You know what I'm thinking, don't you? Yes, she said. You were considering leaving the forest. Yup, specifically, the Eastern Empire, Seal added. Rimuru smiled faintly. Knew it. He looked back up at the moon, eyes half-lidded. Rudra's still alive right now. Still ruling. Still pretending everything's fine. Velgrind is also present, Seal noted. Yeah, Rimuru said. That too. There was something about that place that kept tugging at him. Not urgency. Not danger. Just curiosity. A loose thread he kept noticing and pretending not to see. I'm not planning to meet anyone, he said quickly. No introductions. No conversations. No history-altering nonsense. That contradicts your past behavior, Seal replied. Hey, however, she continued calmly, your intent to remain unobserved is noted. Rimuru exhaled. I just wanna take a look. That's it. See how things are. Make sure nothing's already going off the rails. You are lying slightly, Seal said. Okay. Maybe more than slightly. He scratched his cheek. I just wanna know what kind of guy Rudra really is before everything collapses. That knowledge already exists within your memory, Seal said. Yeah, but this is different, Rimuru replied. That was the end. I wanna see the beginning. Silence followed. The forest breeze moved gently around them. Very well, Seal said at last. I will prepare teleportation. Rimuru blinked. Wait, really? No argument. Your mental restlessness has exceeded optimal levels, she said. Movement is recommended. Wow, Rimuru muttered. You make it sound like a maintenance issue. You are. He laughed softly, shoulders relaxing. All right then, Eastern Empire. Destination will be adjusted to avoid detection, Seal added. No temporal or spatial ripples will be left behind. Perfect, Rimuru said. Stealth mode. The air around him began to shift. Soft, subtle, magicules gathered without pressure, folding space instead of tearing it. Rimuru glanced once more at the quiet forest behind him. You know, he said casually, if I'm already there. Do not, Seal warned. I could maybe mess with Rudra a little, Rimuru continued, grin forming. Just a tiny prank. Nothing big, master. Like, something harmless, he added. Emotionally devastating, maybe, but harmless. There was a pause. We'll see, Seal said. Rimuru's grin widened. All right, he said. Let's go. The teleportation circle completed beneath his feet, light rising gently around him. And just before space fully folded, Rimuru thought, yeah, this might be fun. Then he vanished. The Eastern Empire stretched wide beneath the moonlight, its streets quiet, almost eerily empty. Lanterns flickered along cobblestone paths, their reflections dancing faintly on the polished marble walls of the imperial palace. High towers pierced the sky, but tonight, no guards patrolled the ramparts, no servants scurried in the courtyards. Everything felt paused, like the city itself was holding its breath. Inside the palace, the main hall glimmered under the pale light from giant crystal chandeliers. Gold and crimson drapes hung along the walls, heavy and intimidating, but today they swayed gently in a non-existent breeze. The throne room was completely silent. Not a soul in sight. Chairs stood stiff, banners drooped lazily, and the polished floors reflected the emptiness like a mirror. The massive double doors creaked open, the sound unusually loud in the empty hall. Rudra stepped inside, his boots clanging softly against the marble. Behind him, Velgrind followed, her steps light, almost careful, though her expression remained perfectly calm. The army, Velgrind said casually, glancing around the room. Empire's at its peak. Numbers, morale, magic output all optimal. Rudra's chest puffed out slightly as he nodded. Perfect. If I decide to move, to conquer, he stretched a hand toward the throne, voice confident. It'll be easy, smooth, unstoppable. Velgrind tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing. You mean, if you don't embarrass yourself first? Rudra waved her comment off with a laugh that was supposed to be regal but sounded a little forced in the empty hall. He approached the throne, steps measured, trying to radiate authority. The polished floor seemed to reflect every little wobble in his posture. He reached out, ready to take the seat of ultimate power, when a soft pop echoed behind him. Rudra froze mid-step. Velgrind, still perfectly composed, didn't flinch. From seemingly nowhere, a slick, shiny puddle of something wet and sticky splashed directly under Rudra's feet. His foot slipped with a cartoonish, sprowing, arms flailing wildly, and he ended up sprawled across the marble floor in a pose that could only be described as tragically majestic. Not what it, he sputtered, scrambling upright and wiping something unidentifiable from his robes. Velgrind's deadpan gaze was all-consuming. She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed, crossing her arms. What exactly were you trying to do? I. Rudra started, voice rising. This is totally not. His words were cut off as a gust of wind, small, but perfectly timed, whipped through the throne room, rustling the banners. A decorative vase from a nearby pedestal teetered, wobbled, and then hit Rudra squarely in the shoulder before clattering to the floor. Ow, damn it, Rudra yelled, hopping on one foot and swatting at nothing, hair, must and robes smudged. Seriously, this is totally. Velgrind let out a single, measured sigh. She pinched the bridge of her nose. You really are something else, you know that. Rudra froze mid-apology, staring at her with wide eyes. It's not what it again. Velgrind didn't say a word. She simply turned on her heel, walked away, heels clicking softly against the marble. Not a glance back, not even a hint of mercy. Rudra's mouth flopped open, half in panic, half in disbelief. Wait, Velgrind, come back. It's not. He shuffled forward, trying to maintain what little dignity remained, but then a loud thunk hit him from above. A single sheet of paper fluttered down from somewhere near the chandeliers, landing directly on his face. What the? Rudra peeled it off and blinked. The image on the paper made him stumble backward. There, staring up at him with tiny, exaggerated eyes and a huge, mischievous grin, was a chibi guy Crimson. His tiny hands pointed accusingly at Rudra while a speech bubble read, "Look at you, Emperor Dumpster Fire. Still falling on your face, huh?" Rudra's eyes went wide, jaw slack. No, that's not. He flailed, trying to grab the paper, but it stuck to his robes as if glued there. He twisted, spun, even attempted to rip it off, each movement somehow creating more chaos. His cape tangled around his legs. A decorative rug caught his foot. He toppled forward, arms flailing again, and ended up face first in the throne's golden step. Velgrind's footsteps echoed faintly down the corridor, leaving only silence behind. Rudra groaned, lying flat on the floor, limbs sprawled in a way that looked absurdly theatrical. Why me? Why does this always happen? He clawed at the paper on his chest, trying to rip it, but only succeeded in crumpling it further. The chibi guy's tiny image stared back at him mockingly, the words now smudged but still legible, "Try harder, dum-dum. Even your throne can't save you from yourself. Curse you, hobo demon." Rudra shouted, voice echoing through the empty hall. He jumped up, tried to strike the ceiling in frustration, and instead smacked his forehead on one of the chandelier chains. The lights swung violently, casting long, dramatic shadows across the room. Every heroic gesture ended with something collapsing, falling, slipping, or hitting him in some humiliating way. He stomped, he tripped, he yelled. It all made him look like a cartoon character cursed by fate itself. Finally, he flopped back onto the throne, defeated, paper still stuck to his chest. His breathing was heavy, robes torn in tiny, random places, hair sticking up wildly. He glared at the empty room, muttering incoherently, and then his voice cracked into a shriek. "Guy, Crimson, I will kill you." Another paper drifted down silently from the ceiling, landing on his nose. He froze, eyes wide. Another chibi guy grinned back, waving a tiny fist with a new caption, "Better luck next life, Emperor Clumsy." Rimuru hovered near the throne room, completely invisible, eyes hidden in shadow. He pressed himself against the wall, careful not to make a sound. The sight below was catastrophic. Rudra, robes in disarray, hair sticking out every which way, arms flailing like a puppet with broken strings. The chandelier swayed violently above him, a rug was twisted around his foot, and multiple pieces of paper, each with some cruel little chibi guy Crimson image stuck to him in all the wrong places. Rimuru's lips twitched, just slightly, just enough to feel the itch of a grin forming. He clenched his fists, trying desperately not to laugh. "Breathe," he muttered under his breath. It's fine, don't laugh, don't. You are finding this highly amusing," Seal remarked flatly from his side, voice calm as ever. I'm not," Rimuru squeaked, but the tiny twitch at the corner of his mouth betrayed him. "You are being childish," Seal added, a soft sigh threading through her words. Rimuru leaned slightly forward, whispering, "Childish. Maybe. But look at him. Look at this disaster. His legs, The rug, the paper perfect timing. It's hilarious, Seal interrupted, deadpan. Yes, it is. Rimuru froze. His eyes went wide. Wait, you didn't disagree. No, I did not, she replied evenly. A quiet, horrified sound escaped Rudra from below. He toppled again, cursing, paper stuck to his nose this time. His voice cracked and echoed through the throne room, a mix of rage and humiliation. Rimuru's shoulders shook just slightly. He pressed a hand to his lips, leaning back against the wall, trying so hard to contain himself. This is peak chaos. I can't even. Control yourself, Master, Seal said, tone clipped but amused under the surface. Impossible, Rimuru whispered, gaze glued to Rudra, who was now screaming at nothing in particular. The echo of his shouting bounced through the empty hall. Rimuru's invisible form shivered with suppressed laughter as the scene stretched on. And for once, the world felt quietly perfect. The night sky stretched wide above the Jura forest. Stars scattered across it like quiet witnesses, cold and distant. The moon sat high, casting a faint glow that never quite reached the ground, not with the layers upon layers of barriers wrapped around the hidden mansion. Rimuru stood on the roof, hands in his pockets, looking up. The forest below was silent. Too silent. Even the monsters seemed to know something was coming. So, Rimuru said softly, breaking the stillness. It's time. Yes, Master, Seal answered without hesitation. Velda Nava and Lucia are nearing their final moments. Based on current calculations, Milam's pet dragon will be killed within seconds after. Rimuru closed his eyes for a brief moment. And right after that, he said, voice calm but heavy, Milam goes berserk. Correct, Seal replied. An uncontrollable rampage. The trigger event for everything that follows. Rimuru exhaled slowly, then nodded. So the plan stays the same, he said. Bring the pet dragon back. No hesitation. And collect Lucia's soul before it gets shattered. Prepared and ready, Seal said. Rimuru looked down at his hand, flexing his fingers slightly. As for Velda Nava, there was a pause. I could save him, Rimuru said quietly. I really could. Stop everything right here. Yes, Seal replied. The probability of success is extremely high. But if I do, Rimuru continued, Milam never awakens the way she's supposed to. Her power never fully blooms. She stays incomplete. That outcome would deviate significantly from the established flow, Seal said. Rimuru smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. And that's not fair to her. He looked back up at the stars. She needs that awakening. As cruel as it sounds. That pain shapes her, makes her strong enough to survive everything that comes later. I agree, Seal said calmly. Milam's rampage is not an isolated event. It directly leads to the formation of the Demon Lord Council and the stabilization of the Demon Lord hierarchy itself. Yeah, Rimuru said, it's not just her story. It's everyone's. The forest breeze brushed past him, carrying the scent of earth and leaves. Lucia, though, he added quietly. I'm not letting her soul disappear. That much, I won't compromise on. Understood, Seal replied. Soul preservation protocols are active. Rimuru nodded once more, decision fully settled. All right, he said, send me to the Mountain of Stars. There was no hesitation this time. Teleportation sequence initiated, Seal said, her voice shifting into that familiar, precise cadence. Destination locked. Temporal alignment confirmed. Light gathered beneath Rimuru's feet, soft and controlled. He took one last look at the quiet forest, the hidden mansion, the calm that was about to shatter elsewhere. Let's go, he said simply. At once, Master. Space folded, and in the next instant, Rimuru vanished. The Mountain of Stars. The Mountain of Stars was burning. Not with fire but with aftermath. The peak that once held a beautiful palace now looked like it had been ripped apart by God's hands. Cracked stone spread out in every direction, massive pillars collapsed and shattered, walls torn open like paper. The air itself felt wrong, heavy with grief, rage, and leftover divine power that hadn't faded yet. Bodies were everywhere. Soldiers from the Super Sorcery Kingdom lay scattered across the broken grounds. Some were crushed beneath rubble. Others were burned black, frozen solid, or twisted in ways that told a clear story they never stood a chance. And above it all, far in the distance, a wave of overwhelming magicules tore across the sky. Milam Nava had already begun her rampage. Her presence was obvious even without seeing her. The land screamed with it. A straight path of destruction cut away from the mountain, heading toward the super sorcery kingdom, the source of all this. At that moment, a soft glow appeared. Space rippled once, quietly. Rimuru stepped out into the ruined summit. The first thing he noticed was the smell. Damn, he muttered, eyes narrowing slightly. I was hoping I'd be early. He looked around slowly, taking everything in. The destroyed palace, the bodies, the silence that came after something truly irreversible. So this is it, he said quietly. The mountain of stars after the end. Timeline confirmation complete, Seal said calmly in his mind. Events have progressed as recorded. Milam has departed toward the super sorcery kingdom. Rimuru clenched his jaw just a little. Figures. He lifted his hand, palm open, facing the ruins. All right, he said softly. Let's clean this up. His eyes sharpened. Azathoth, Rimuru said clearly. Devour what's unnecessary to me. The world responded instantly. From his palm, a massive black vortex unfolded, not violently, not chaotically, but with terrifying calm. Space collapsed inward as if reality itself was being swallowed. The ruins of the palace vanished first. Stone, metal, magic gone without resistance. Then the bodies. One by one, hundreds of dead soldiers were pulled into the void, erased without pain, without sound. Leftover spells, broken artifacts, lingering curses, all of it disappeared, stripped clean. The vortex expanded briefly, then slowly shrank. When it vanished, silence returned. What remained was bare ground. Empty. Except for three things. 2 human-shaped bodies lay side by side. And a small dragon. Rimuru lowered his hand and walked forward. His steps were slow, respectful. He stopped in front of the woman first. Pink hair, long and soft even in death. Her expression was peaceful, almost gentle, like she had accepted her fate long before the end came. Lucia, Rimuru said quietly. Milam's mom. He glanced to the side. The man beside her had long black hair and features that felt wrong. Not ugly, not weak, just stripped of something vast. Something endless. Velda Nava, once the creator god, the first true dragon, now just a body. Hard to believe, Rimuru said, exhaling. You were literally everything at one point. Master, Seal spoke softly. Shall I proceed? Rimuru nodded. Yeah, collect Lucia's soul. Understood. There was no dramatic light this time. No flash. Lucia's body shimmered faintly, just once. Soul successfully secured, Seal reported. Condition stable. No fragmentation detected. Rimuru relaxed slightly. Good. That's one thing done right. He turned toward Velda Nava's body and stared at it for a few seconds. I know this isn't the last time I'll see you, Rimuru said calmly. Knowing you, you'll find a way back. He smirked faintly. So next time we meet let's at least talk first, he added. Before we try killing each other. No response. Rimuru turned away. His gaze settled on the small dragon. It was dark pinkish brown, scales dulled, body curled slightly as if it had been sleeping. Milam's pet dragon. A gift from Velda Nava. The last innocent thing tied to her before everything shattered. Rimuru crouched beside it. Sorry you got dragged into this, he muttered. None of this was fair. Master, Seal said, would you like to restore it immediately or return it as an egg? Rimuru thought for a moment. Egg, he said, let Milam meet it properly. From the start, acknowledged. The dragon's body began to glow softly. Not painfully, not forcefully. Then it faded, gone. Inside Rimuru's mind, Seal moved instantly. Commencing restoration process, she said, voice shifting into that precise, AI-like tone. Soul integrity confirmed. Biological rollback initiated. Form conversion. Embryonic state. Rimuru waited, hands in his pockets. A second passed. Then, process complete, Seal said. Dragon restored successfully. Status. Healthy egg. Rimuru smiled. Easy for you, huh? Difficulty level was negligible, Seal replied. However, emotional significance is high. Yeah, Rimuru said softly. That's the hard part. He straightened and looked toward the horizon, where the sky still glowed faintly with Milam's rage. She's probably already halfway there, he said. Mad, hurt, and completely alone. Her awakening is unavoidable at this stage, Seal said. However, intervention can still influence the outcome. Rimuru nodded. That's all I need. He took a slow breath. All right, he said. Now let's meet Milam. He smiled faintly, eyes sharp but warm. And hopefully, he added, she awakens properly. A pause. If things go the way we planned, Rimuru continued, the future might actually be bright. I agree, Seal said without hesitation. Rimuru glanced at the empty mountain one last time. Send me near the Super Sorcery Kingdom. Teleportation sequence ready, Seal replied. Initiating transfer. Light gathered. Space folded, and before the silence could return, Rimuru vanished. At that moment, as Rimuru vanished teleporting away, the voice of the world spoke. Notice. Individual, Veldanava, Star King Dragon, Creator God, has died. In that instant, the whole of existence trembled in sorrow and grief. After all, its creator had passed away. Meanwhile, what used to be the Super Sorcery Kingdom no longer looked like a nation. It was a wound. Cities were erased down to their foundations, streets melted into glass, towers snapped like twigs. The land itself had been torn open, mana scorched so badly the air screamed with instability. Nothing moved, nothing lived. High above it all, Milam Nava hovered in the sky. Her pink hair was tied into two messy pigtails, fluttering wildly in the violent storm of magic around her. Her blue eyes, once bright and playful, were now glowing, empty, and burning with pure rage. There was no thought behind them. No hesitation. Only destruction. She raised one small hand. And fired. A single dragon buster shot downward. In less than a heartbeat, half the kingdom vanished. The blast didn't stop there. It punched straight through the land behind it, obliterating the massive mountain range as if it had never existed. Rock, earth, mana gone. The shockwave split the sky itself. Then, the world spoke. Notice. Individual, Milam Nava, has met all conditions for true Demon Lord awakening. Notice. Harvest Festival, now beginning. Normally, this was the moment where evolution forced sleep. Where the soul stabilized. Where reason was preserved. But Milam didn't fall. Her body trembled and then moved on its own. The voice of the world spoke again. Notice. Unique skill, Wrath, has evolved. Notice. Ultimate skill, Wrathful King Satanel, successfully acquired. The moment Satanel awakened, it seized control. Milam entered stampede mode, a state of uncontrollable destruction. No thoughts, no mercy, only instinct. Her sanity began to fracture. Dark, violent magicules exploded outward from her body, spreading across the sky in a terrifying radius. The land below cracked and screamed as existence itself bent under her presence. She descended slowly, destroying everything. If Milam Nava was not stopped, the world itself would fall, reduced to nothing more than a mindless ruin beneath her rage. Meanwhile, what used to be the Super Sorcery Kingdom no longer looked like a nation. It was a wound. Cities were erased down to their foundations, streets melted into glass, towers snapped like twigs. The land itself had been torn open, mana scorched so badly the air screamed with instability. Nothing moved, nothing lived. High above it all, Milam Nava hovered in the sky. Her pink hair was tied into two messy pigtails, fluttering wildly in the violent storm of magic around her. Her blue eyes, once bright and playful, were now glowing, empty, and burning with pure rage. There was no thought behind them. No hesitation. Only destruction. She raised one small hand. And fired. A single dragon buster shot downward. In less than a heartbeat, half the kingdom vanished. The blast didn't stop there. It punched straight through the land behind it, obliterating the massive mountain range as if it had never existed. Rock, earth, mana gone. The shockwave split the sky itself. Then, the world spoke. Notice. Individual, Milam Nava, has met all conditions for true Demon Lord awakening. Notice. Harvest Festival, now beginning. Normally, this was the moment where evolution forced sleep. Where the soul stabilized. Where reason was preserved. But Milam didn't fall. Her body trembled and then moved on its own. The voice of the world spoke again. Notice. Unique skill, Wrath, has evolved. Notice. Ultimate skill, Wrathful King Satanel, successfully acquired. The moment Satanel awakened, it seized control. Milam entered stampede mode, a state of uncontrollable destruction. No thoughts, No mercy, only instinct. Her sanity began to fracture. Dark, violent magicules exploded outward from her body, spreading across the sky in a terrifying radius. The land below cracked and screamed as existence itself bent under her presence. She descended slowly, destroying everything. If Milam Nava was not stopped, the world itself would fall, reduced to nothing more than a mindless ruin beneath her rage. The world was breaking. What remained of the super sorcery kingdom continued to collapse in on itself. Mana storms ripping through the air, the ground cracking open in slow, violent pulses. The sky burned red and violet, warped by the sheer pressure of Milam Nava's existence. She hovered there, small frame wrapped in endless rage. Then, space twisted, not violently, cleanly. 3 presences arrived at once. Guy Crimson appeared first, standing in midair like gravity was a suggestion. His crimson eyes narrowed the moment he took in the scene: the erased land, the screaming Mana, the small girl at the center of it all. TCH, he clicked his tongue. She's already in full stampede. Beside him, ice bloomed through the air. Velzard manifested without sound, her long silver hair flowing calmly despite the chaos. Her eyes locked onto Milam, and for the first time in a long while, something close to irritation crossed her face. "This is bad," she said flatly. "She's lost herself completely." The third arrival was softer but heavier in a different way. Light gathered, folded inward, and formed into a figure with wings. Ramirez. But not the tiny, playful fairy most knew. This was her adult form. Graceful, radiant, ancient. Her golden hair flowed down her back, wings spread wide as she hovered unsteadily, eyes wide as she took in Milam's condition. "Oh no," Ramirez whispered. "This is way worse than I thought." Milam's head twitched. Her glowing blue eyes locked onto them. The pressure spiked instantly. "She noticed us," Guy muttered. "Great." A violent wave of magicules exploded outward, ripping apart what little remained of the land below. The air screamed. Ramirez flinched, then clenched her fists. "No time," she said quickly. "We can't do this here." She raised both hands, authority flooding outward. "By administrative right," Ramirez said sharply, voice echoing with power, "I override this space." The world blinked. Everything vanished. They reappeared in silence. No screaming Mana, no burning sky, just calm. Endless, lush land stretched out beneath them, green fields, gentle hills, glowing plants humming softly with natural magic. The air was clean, stable, alive. The holy void of Demargania. Dagruel's domain. Normally, this place carried the weight of the primordial giant's presence. Right now, no one cared. Milam screamed. A raw, wordless sound tore from her throat as her rage followed her into the new space. Dark magicules exploded outward again, crashing against an invisible barrier that formed instinctively around her. Guy landed lightly on the ground, boots barely making a sound. "All right," he said, rolling his shoulders. "Same plan as always." Velzard descended beside him, arms crossed. "Break the barrier. Give Ramirez a window." Ramirez hovered behind them, already glowing faintly as she prepared her authority. "I'll absorb as much of the corrupted magicules as I can," she said quickly. "But I need her defenses weakened first." Milam turned toward them fully. Her small body trembled. Then she moved. The ground detonated as she launched forward, fist wrapped in black-red energy. Guy stepped forward without hesitation. "Hey," he said casually. "Over here, brat." Milam didn't hesitate. She struck. Guy met her head on. The impact shattered the air. A shockwave tore through the holy void, flattening grass for kilometers as Guy slid back slightly, boots carving lines into the ground. "Damn," he muttered. "That's new." Milam followed instantly, hand slashing, raw power poured into every movement with zero restraint. Guy laughed under his breath. "All right," he said, eyes sharp. "Let's dance." He dodged cleanly, movement smooth and precise, weaving between attacks that could have erased continents. Each time Milam struck, the land behind him vanished. Guy countered, not to kill, not to dominate, but to test. Every block rang like a bell. Every clash cracked space. Velzard stayed back, eyes tracking everything, ice magic ready but restrained. She knew better than to interfere directly right now. Ramirez raised her hands, wings glowing brighter. Threads of light extended from her toward Milam, slowly drawing in the overflowing corrupted magicules that leaked from Milam's body like smoke. "Hang in there," Romulus whispered. "Just a little longer." Milam roared again, power spiking. She slammed her fists together and released a blast point blank. Guy crossed his arms and took it head on. The explosion swallowed him completely. For half a second, nothing. Then Guy walked out of the smoke, coat torn, grin wide. "Yeah," he said, cracking his neck. "You're definitely stronger than before." Milam screamed and charged again, faster this time. Guy met her, fist against fist, every impact shaking the holy void itself. Despite his ease, the difference was obvious. Milam was growing, adapting, pushing harder with every second. Guy slid back again, boots digging deep this time. "Tch," he muttered, eyes narrowing. "She's still climbing." Behind him, Romulus staggered slightly as she absorbed more corruption. I'm getting through," she called out, slowly. Velzard watched silently, fists clenched. Guy exhaled slowly, steadying himself as Milam prepared another charge. "Yeah," he said quietly to himself, lips curling into a grin that was equal parts amused and serious. This might take a while. The fight didn't end. It stretched. What was supposed to be a clash turned into something closer to a natural disaster that refused to stop breathing. Day 1 bled into night. Night bled back into day. The holy void of Demargania stopped feeling holy after the first few hours. By the end of the first day, the land was already scarred craters overlapping craters, the sky constantly rippling from shockwaves. Guy Crimson moved non-stop, meeting Milam's attacks head-on, redirecting, deflecting, enduring. Milam didn't slow. She didn't tire. She screamed, attacked, destroyed, then did it again. By the second day, Guy noticed it. "She's still getting stronger," he muttered under his breath as he blocked another blow that cracked space like glass. Milam wasn't just raging. She was absorbing. Every burst of magicules she released didn't vanish. It looped, sank back into her. The surrounding mana, the ambient energy of the holy void itself, everything fed her automatically. No thinking, no control, just instinct. On the sidelines, Romulus hovered, hands glowing, wings trembling as she pressed her authority against Milam's invisible barrier. "Why won't it crack?" she whispered, sweat beading on her forehead. This much corruption should have loosened it by now. Velzard stood beside her the entire time, unmoving, watching. Her eyes never left Milam. "She's locking herself from the inside," Velzard said calmly. "Wrath is reinforcing her ego barrier. The more pain she feels, the thicker it becomes." Romulus swallowed. "That's unfair." Velzard didn't answer. By day 3, Guy had stopped joking. His breathing stayed steady, but his movements grew sharper, more precise. He wasted nothing. Every counter had purpose. Milam, meanwhile, started forcing him back. Not by skill but raw power. She slammed him into the ground once, hard enough that the impact flattened kilometers of land. Guy burst back out immediately, but his coat was torn further now, cracks forming in the space around him each time he reappeared. "You're really not holding back anymore, huh?" he muttered. Milam didn't respond. She never did. By day 4, the sky stopped stabilizing between clashes. The holy void began failing to regenerate properly. Grass no longer grew back. Craters stayed open. Romulus's voice grew strained. I'm pulling corrupted magicules constantly, but it's like scooping water out of a flood with a cup." Guy glanced her way briefly as he blocked another blow. "Keep at it," he said. "I'll make time." By day 5, Guy felt it. The drag. Magicules weren't flowing back as fast anymore. "Tch," he clicked his tongue as he landed from a heavy exchange. "So that's how it is." Milam surged forward again, claws ripping through the air. Guy deflected, but this time, the impact pushed him back farther than before. He slid across broken land, boots carving deep trenches. "She's not just stronger," he muttered. "She's recycling everything." Milam absorbed the surroundings automatically. Every spell, every collision, every stray magicule became fuel. Guy straightened slowly. "All right," he said quietly. "Guess it's my turn." His eyes sharpened. Prideful King Lucifer. The air around him shifted. Not explosively. Precisely. Lucifer activated not as brute force, but as analysis. Guy's perception tore into Milam's structure, her flow, her absorption cycle. "Found it," he said, lips curling into a grin. He mirrored it, not copying Satinel itself but the function. Magical generation, recycling, conversion. Guy exhaled as his own flow stabilized, replenishing instead of draining. Oh, he chuckled. That's a neat trick. Milam slammed into him again. This time, Guy didn't move. The shockwave still shattered the land, but Guy stood firm, laughing. Yeah, he said, now we're even. By the end of day 5, the balance returned. For a while, day 6 shattered that illusion. Milam adapted again. Her output spiked beyond what Guy copied. Satinel twisted, refined itself, deepening her absorption speed. She grew faster, heavier, more violent. Guy matched, then got pushed back, again. By day 7, even Guy felt the pressure. Not exhaustion. Guy didn't tire like that but strain. Constant output, constant defense, constant escalation. The holy void was barely holding together. Then, Milam roared, not in rage, in release. She struck Guy with a full force blow. He didn't block in time. The hit launched him downward like a meteor, smashing him through layers of broken land and slamming him deep into the ground. Before anyone could react, Milam turned. Her eyes locked onto Ramirez. Energy gathered instantly. Milam, no, Ramirez screamed. Too late. Milam unleashed Drago Nova, a massive blast of blue, pink, and white magicals mixed with stardust and pure wrath tore through the sky, aimed directly at Ramirez and Velzard. The world screamed. Ramirez froze in panic. Velzard didn't. She raised one hand. Ice formed instantly absolute, divine ice layered upon itself endlessly. A massive frozen wall bloomed in front of them, thick enough to block worlds. The Drago Nova hit. The explosion erased everything. The holy void collapsed. Land vanished. Sky tore apart. Magicals burned out completely. When the dust finally settled, nothing remained. Only a wasteland. Dead, empty, silent. At the center of it, Velzard stood. Unmoved. Ramirez hovered beside her, shaking, eyes wide. We're alive, Ramirez whispered. Velzard lowered her hand slowly. Barely, she said. She looked down. A thin red line marked her palm. A scratch. Huh, Velzard said quietly. It reached me. She clenched her hand, ice sealing the wound instantly. Velzard turned slightly. Ramirez. Status. Ramirez swallowed hard. No luck. Her barrier's still holding. I can't break through yet. Behind them, the ground exploded as Guy burst back up, already re-engaging Milam mid-air. Their fists collided again, shockwaves tearing through the dead land. Velzard watched, silent. Then she exhaled slowly. Should I intervene? The ground quaked again. Velzard's eyes narrowed as she turned, sensing the shockwave before it even landed. What? She murmured, ice bracing around her hand instinctively. The earth exploded beneath them. Dust, debris, energy it all flung outward in a violent arc. When the dust cleared, Velzard's gaze swept across the field. Guy lay sprawled on the ground nearby, coughing lightly but already beginning to push himself up. Ramirez hovered just above, wings trembling, her expression tight with worry. He sent him flying all the way back to the ground, Ramirez said, voice trembling. Milam, she's untouchable right now. Her aura, it's insane. Velzard glanced at Guy, brow raised. Are you okay? She asked, though her tone held more curiosity than alarm. Guy grunted, slowly rising to his feet, brushing off dirt. I'm fine. Could have been worse. But yeah, she's still untouchable. Her speed, her raw output, she's on a completely different level right now. Ramirez exhaled sharply, shaking her head. This might take longer than we thought. Velzard's gaze shifted back to Milam, still hovering above. Her barrier, it's not weakening at all. We'll need something more than brute force. Guy straightened, eyes flashing with determination. Then we just keep going. I can't let her run wild forever. Not like this. No sooner had he spoken than the air split violently. Milam's body surged with energy, her magicule spiraling into a massive Drago Nova. This one was hundreds of times stronger than her previous attacks, a twisting column of blinding light, stardust, and destructive magicals aimed directly at them. Ramirez's eyes widened. It's stronger, we won't survive that. Velzard's hand went up instinctively, her ice bracing, but even she could feel the raw force threatening to tear through her defenses. Guy tensed, ready to act. Wait, he muttered. Something in the back of his mind noticed it, the shift in the flow, the rhythm of the attack. And then, a calm voice cut through the chaos, smooth and almost casual. Devour it all, Azathoth. In an instant, a black void erupted in front of them. It swirled, alive with hunger, consuming everything in its path. Milam's colossal Drago Nova collided with it, then just like that vanished. Nothing remained. No light, no explosion, no stardust scattering. Only a calm black vortex, slowly collapsing in on itself until it disappeared entirely, leaving the air around them shockingly still. The three of them slowly turned toward the source. And there he was, a man standing calmly amidst the devastation, as if none of it mattered. Blue hair flowed past his shoulders, catching faint starlight, and golden eyes scanned the scene lazily. Black clothes and a long coat swayed gently, not a single crease disturbed despite the chaos around them. He didn't look rushed. He didn't even look annoyed. The man tilted his head slightly, expression calm, almost playful. Yo, need help. The silence after that single sentence felt heavier than the battlefield ever had. Yo, need help. For half a second, nobody moved. Then Guy's eye twitched. Who the hell are you? He demanded flatly, crimson eyes narrowing as he took a step forward, posture still tense from the fight. Romulus blinked rapidly, wings fluttering. Wait, when did you even get here? I didn't feel you arrive at all. The blue-haired man scratched the back of his head casually, like he'd just been asked why he was late to a meeting. Just happened to be passing by, you know. No big deal. Guy stared at him. Velzard stared harder. That's not an answer, Guy said deadpan. Velzard's voice followed, calm but sharp. You erased a Drago Nova that nearly destroyed a divine domain. Passing by does not explain that. Rimuru shrugged lightly. Yeah, fair. Still though, he glanced up toward the raging pink blur in the sky. You guys look like you're having a rough day. Romulus let out a weak laugh. That's one way to put it. Rimuru clasped his hands together. Anyway, seems like you're in a little trouble. Mind if I help? Guy scoffed. Help. He gestured sharply toward Milam. Do you have any idea what you're stepping into right now? Rimuru tilted his head. Not really. Guy's eye twitched again. Then what could you possibly do about this? Guy snapped. Rimuru smiled faintly. Not arrogant. Not confident. Just easy. I don't know, he said honestly. Guess I'll find out when I try. Romulus stared at him like he'd just said he was going to fistfight a hurricane. Velzard, meanwhile, wasn't looking at his face anymore. She was listening. No feeling. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she focused her senses on him. At first, there was nothing clear. His aura was strange, quiet, contained, like a perfectly still sea hiding unimaginable depth. Then it hit her. Her breath stalled. No, she thought. That pressure. That presence. It wasn't identical, but it was close. Too close. It carried the same weight she had felt long ago. Back when there were 4 of them. Back when her eldest brother still existed as something greater than himself. Velda Nava. Not the human he became later. But the true dragon he was before that. That's impossible, Velzard thought, eyes flicking back to Rimuru. Velda Nava is dead. There are only 3 of us now. And yet, that resonance wouldn't go away. Who? She wondered silently. Are you? Rimuru was just about to say something else when he paused. He said, glancing upward. Guys. Guy frowned. What now? Rimuru pointed lazily toward the sky. While you were busy interrogating me, she's already attacking again. All 3 of them snapped their heads up. Milam hovered high above, magicule spiraling violently around her. Power compressed so densely that the sky itself warped inward. Another Drago Nova. Bigger. Denser. Meaner. Romulus went pale. She's not even slowing down. Guy cursed under his breath. Damn it. Velzard raised her hand again, ice already forming, but even she knew this one would be worse. Rimuru sighed. Give me a second. He stepped forward. A black sword formed in his hand, no flash, no grand summoning circle. It was just there, simple, clean, like it had always existed. He raised it casually, then slashed. One clean motion. The Drago Nova split, perfectly. The massive energy blast separated down the middle, its 2 halves destabilizing instantly before dissolving into harmless light and fading away completely. The sword vanished from Rimuru's hand as if it had never existed. "Welp," Rimuru said, rubbing his neck. "That was close." He turned back toward them. "Guys, keep your guards up. She's still fully rampaging." Guy stared. Romulus stared harder. Velzard didn't move at all. "You just..." Guy started, then stopped, teeth grinding. "You just cut that." Romulus hovered closer, eyes wide. "You split it." Velzard finally spoke, voice calm but edged with disbelief. "That blade, that technique, that presence." Her eyes locked onto Rimuru. "You're not normal." Rimuru smiled awkwardly. "Yeah, about that." Guy snapped. "Hey, don't change the subject. Who are you really?" Rimuru raised both hands placatingly. "Later. Let's act first, yeah. Talking's gonna be hard if the world's gone." He turned slowly, gaze lifting back to the sky. Milam hovered there, eyes empty, power still rising. Inside his mind, Ciel's voice echoed calmly. "Master, if you approach her directly, Milam Nava will attack you immediately. Probability of severe damage is high." Rimuru exhaled softly. "Yeah," he replied internally. "Figured. Counterattack." "No," Rimuru said, "I'm not punching back." There was a brief pause. Then, "As you wish, master." Behind him, shadows shifted. Black wings unfurled from his back, vast, smooth, and silent, spreading wide against the ruined sky. Guy felt his instincts scream. Romulus gasped softly. Velzard's eyes widened just a fraction. Rimuru lifted off the ground, rising steadily toward the raging dragon girl above. He looked relaxed, almost gentle. "Now then," he said quietly, eyes fixed on Milam. "Let's get started, shall we?" Rimuru didn't hesitate. The moment his words left his mouth, space between him and Milam just vanished. Not a teleport, not a flash. He simply wasn't there anymore, and then he was right in front of her. Milam reacted instantly. Pure instinct. Her fist came screaming forward, wrapped in violent magicules, fast enough to shatter space on impact. Rimuru leaned his head slightly to the side. The punch missed by a hair. "Whoa," Rimuru muttered lightly. "Still fast." Milam didn't pause. She never did. Her other fist followed, then a kick, then another punch, wild, brutal, completely unrestrained. Every strike carried enough force to erase continents. Rimuru moved through it like he was stepping through rain. A tilt of his shoulders. A half step back. A small pivot of his foot. Each attack passed him by harmlessly, shockwaves ripping the sky behind him instead. Hey, Rimuru said calmly as he sidestepped another blow. "Easy there. I'm not the one you're mad at." Milam roared. She lunged again, this time throwing a flurry of punches, both arms moving like she was trying to tear him apart through sheer volume alone. Rimuru sighed softly. "Yeah, guess talking's not an option right now." He kept dodging. No counters, no blocks, just smooth, effortless avoidance. From below, Guy stared upward, jaw tight. "You've gotta be kidding me." Romulus clutched her hands to her chest. He's not even getting hit." Velzard watched in silence, eyes sharp, reading every movement. Up in the sky, Milam's attacks grew faster. Heavier, sloppier. Rage drove her body, but there was no control left in it. No technique, no restraint. Inside Rimuru's mind, Ciel's voice spoke, calm and precise. "Master, this state matches historical data. As in the original timeline, Milam Nava has lost conscious control. Her body is currently governed entirely by ultimate skill, wrathful King Satanel." "I know," Rimuru replied internally as he ducked under another swing. "But something feels off." Milam slammed both fists downward. Rimuru stepped between them, the ground behind him collapsing into nothingness. "She feels worse," Rimuru continued. "More dangerous than that time." "Analysis complete," Ciel replied. "Difference confirmed." Rimuru weaved past a kick that tore the clouds apart. "Yeah, what's the reason?" "In the original timeline, stampede mode was forcibly induced through external interference," Ciel explained. "Specifically, Feldway's control and manipulation." Rimuru narrowed his eyes slightly as he avoided another strike. Meaning this instance is natural," Ciel said. "Wrath is unfiltered, pure. Her ego barrier has collapsed from within rather than being overridden." Milam screamed again, power surging violently. "As a result," Ciel continued, "her danger level exceeds the prior event." Current state represents wrath at its most authentic. Rimuru nodded slowly. Figures. He stepped back just as Milim swung both arms at once, space folding violently around her. Then yeah, Rimuru said quietly. Better end this fast. Agreed, Seal replied. Rimuru stopped dodging. Milim's fist came straight at his chest. This time, Rimuru caught it. His hand closed gently but firmly around her wrist. Milim froze for half a heartbeat, eyes widening just a fraction. Then she screamed louder and punched with her other hand. Rimuru caught that one too. The shockwave still exploded outward, flattening everything below, but between them, nothing moved. Milim struggled, thrashing wildly, trying to tear free. Magicals flared violently, her body shaking as she tried to overwhelm him with raw force. Rimuru didn't budge. Easy, he said softly. Milim kicked, her knee slamming into his side. Rimuru shifted and pulled her closer instead. In one smooth motion, he wrapped his arms around her. A hug, not a restraining hold, not a lock, just an embrace. Milim thrashed violently, fists shaking in his grip, her body radiating rage and pain and confusion all at once. She tried to pull away. Rimuru held her gently but unmovingly. It's okay, he said quietly, voice low and steady. I've got you. Milim shook harder, a broken sound tearing from her throat as corrupted magicals surged and cracked against Rimuru's body like waves hitting an unbreakable shore. Inside his mind, Rimuru spoke again. Seal, he said calmly. Your turn. At once, Master. Ciel's presence shifted, cold, precise. Initiating override sequence, she announced. Target. Ultimate skill Wrathful King Satanel. Milim's aura spasmed violently, commencing authority intrusion. The raging magicals flickered, analyzing skill structure. Milim screamed once more, then. Control node located. Her movements stuttered. Stampede mode. Forcibly disengaging. The violent pressure began to crumble. Wrath output suppressed. The dark aura shattered like glass. Corrupted magicals. Purged. The sky went quiet. Milim's body went limp. All that remained was silence and a small girl held tightly in Rimuru's arms. The raging storm vanished completely. Rimuru felt her weight settle fully against him as her muscles relaxed, strength draining away all at once. He adjusted his grip instinctively, holding her more securely. Below, Guy exhaled sharply. It's over. Romulus stared. He did it. Velzard said nothing. Rimuru slowly descended, wings folding back into nothing as he reached the ground. He shifted Milim into his arms, holding her princess style without even thinking about it. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Barely conscious. Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, weakly, Milim opened her eyes and looked up at him. Her glowing rage was gone. What remained was confusion, and something softer. Papa, she whispered. Then her eyes closed, and she went completely limp. Rimuru froze. Huh, he blinked, looking down at her face, then glanced away awkwardly. Seal. Yes, Master. Why did she just call me that? There was a brief pause. Then, hypothesis, Seal said. Milim Nava may have subconsciously recognized your presence. Rimuru frowned slightly. Recognized how? Your power signature closely resembles that of Veldanava, Seal explained. Not identical but sufficiently similar to trigger an instinctive response. Rimuru looked down at Milim again. So you're saying, he muttered, she sensed something familiar. Correct, Seal replied. This may be the reason. Rimuru let out a slow breath. Yeah, he said quietly. That might be why. Rimuru stood there for a second longer, Milim's weight light in his arms, the battlefield quiet in a way that still felt unreal. Yeah, he muttered to himself. That explains a lot, and also nothing. He turned around and started walking. Guy, Velzard, and Romulus were all still staring like their brains hadn't caught up yet. Rimuru took a few steps toward them, careful, relaxed. And Romulus suddenly zipped forward. Wait, she said, flapping in front of him. I'll take her. Before Rimuru could even respond, Romulus gently lifted Milim out of his arms, holding her close. Milim didn't stir at all, just breathing softly, completely peaceful now. Romulus looked down at her, then back up at Rimuru. Thank you, she said, voice small but sincere. Whoever you are really, thank you. Rimuru scratched his cheek. No problem. She's tough, but yeah. Wouldn't want her hurting herself. Velzard hadn't moved. She was staring straight at Rimuru. Not hostile, not aggressive, just searching. Her lips parted slightly. Brother, she whispered. The word was soft, but in the silence, it landed like thunder. Everyone froze. Guy turned so fast his coat snapped. What? Romulus blinked. Huh. What did you just say, Velzard? Rimuru stiffened. Velzard didn't look away from him. Her eyes were steady now, sharp with something old and heavy. Brother, she repeated quietly. Guy frowned deeply. Explain. Now, what do you mean, brother? Velzard finally shifted her gaze, glancing at them before pointing straight at Rimuru. The voice of the world announced it, she said calmly. That my elder brother Veldanava had died. Rimuru swallowed. Velzard continued, her tone even. But true dragons do not die the way other beings do. We are pillars of creation. Even if destroyed, we eventually return. Reborn. Somewhere. Somewhen. She looked back at Rimuru. So, she said slowly. I wondered. Guy crossed his arms. You're saying you think this guy is Veldanava? Ramirez's eyes widened. Wait, if that's true then. She looked at Rimuru again, startled. That would explain why you stopped Milam so easily. All eyes turned to him. Rimuru raised both hands instantly. Whoa, hold on. Nope. Big nope. You're all misunderstanding. Guy narrowed his eyes. Then explain what I just saw. Rimuru sighed. I am not Veldanava. Okay. Different person. Completely. Guy scoffed. You expect us to believe that after that? I do, actually, Rimuru said, shrugging. Because it's true. Velzard stepped closer. Her presence alone made the air tighten. And yet, she said quietly, you possess a true dragon factor. Rimuru blinked. I do. Yes, Velzard said. That much is undeniable. She folded her arms. It should be impossible. There have only ever been 4 true dragons. Veldanava, myself, Velgrind, Veldora. Guy nodded. That's right. Velzard's eyes stayed locked on Rimuru. There should not be a 5th. Rimuru took a step back instinctively. Okay. That's not great. Inside his mind, he immediately called out. Seal. Yes, master. She's right, isn't she? Rimuru asked internally. You said you were hiding my presence. Correct. Seal replied calmly. However, true dragons are pillars of creation. At close proximity, concealing a true dragon factor from another true dragon is effectively impossible. Rimuru grimaced. So what am I supposed to do now? Recommendation, Seal said. Play along partially. I'm not calling myself Veldanava, Rimuru replied instantly. Even if it sounds cool. Not happening. There was a short pause. Alternative proposal, Seal continued. Claim you were summoned by Veldanava from the depths of the void. Purpose. Protection of Milam Nava. Rimuru winced. That somehow sounds worse. Probability of acceptance. Higher than denial, Seal added. Rimuru exhaled slowly. Screw it. Fine. He looked back up at them. All right, Rimuru said, rubbing the back of his neck. I'll explain. But let's get one thing straight first. Guy watched him closely. Velzard didn't blink. Romulus hovered nervously. I am not Veldanava, Rimuru said firmly. But he did have something to do with me. Velzard's eyes sharpened. Rimuru continued, choosing his words carefully. I was summoned. Pulled out from somewhere else. His last breath, you could say. Guy frowned. Summoned. Rimuru nodded. He asked me to look after Milam. To protect her from danger when no one else could. Silence. Heavy. Skeptical. Uncomfortable. Guy clicked his tongue. That's a bold claim. He stepped forward slightly. I'm a primordial demon. One of the 7. I existed before the world took shape. And I've never heard of you. Velzard nodded. Nor have I. Romulus shook her head too. And I'm the spirit queen. I've never heard of anything like that either. Rimuru spread his hands. Yeah, fair. Guy stared at him harder. So why should we believe you? Rimuru smiled weakly. Because Milam's alive, calm, and not destroying reality anymore. Guy clicked his tongue again, annoyed. Rimuru tried to shift the mood. Anyway, since everything's settled now, I should probably. Guy's hand clamped down on his shoulder. Firm, heavy. Rimuru froze. Guy leaned in slightly, a smug grin creeping onto his face. Oh no, you're not leaving. Rimuru glanced sideways. I was kind of hoping I could. Guy chuckled. Let's talk somewhere more comfortable. Middle of a destroyed battlefield isn't ideal, yeah. Velzard nodded calmly. Agreed. Romulus smiled, holding Milam a little tighter. And Milam will definitely be happy to see you again when she wakes up. Rimuru flinched. That doesn't sound ominous at all. Guy tightened his grip just a bit. Ice Castle. Well, BW great. Rimuru tried to pull back. I really think this is unnecessary. Velzard looked at him. It is necessary. It wasn't forceful, but it carried weight. Rimuru sighed deeply. You guys are way too persuasive, he muttered. Guy released his shoulder, smirking. Good. Then it's settled. Romulus nodded happily. Yay. Rimuru looked up at the ruined sky one last time. Yeah, he said quietly. Guess I'm not getting out of this. And just like that, the direction of his day changed again. The chamber was quiet. Only 5 seats sat around the circular stone table, unfinished, bare except for faint cracks in the floor. Rimuru sat on one of them, fidgeting a little, hands folded awkwardly. Across from him, Guy, Velzard, and Romulus stared at him, all serious, like they were sizing him up. Master, they're staring right at you. Careful, Seal said calmly in his mind. I know, Rimuru whispered back. I can feel it. Guy was the first to speak, leaning forward, arms resting on the table. All right, cut the crap. Who are you? Tell us the truth. Rimuru swallowed. He glanced at Romulus and Velzard. Romulus raised a gentle hand. Guy, maybe let's just ask his name first. Keep it simple. Velzard nodded once. Yeah, one thing at a time. Guy groaned but leaned back, clearly impatient. Fine. Name. Just the name. Rimuru Tempest, he said quietly, keeping his gaze low. Velzard's eyes flicked to him, sharp. And how are you a true dragon? Explain. Rimuru froze, scratching the back of his head nervously. I don't really know what you mean. Velzard's gaze didn't waver. Don't dodge. Just answer. Rimuru shook his head slightly, voice low. I don't want to. It's personal. Romulus gave a soft smile. Then let's respect that. Not everything needs explaining. Guy leaned back with a long sigh. All right, not pressing it. Velzard nodded slowly, as if conceding. Just then, a portal shimmered open and 2 figures appeared. Rain and Misery, carrying a tray with steaming tea. Romulus gave a small nod. Misery, how's Milam? Misery set the tray down, voice calm and precise. She's currently sleeping. Could wake in a few minutes, maybe as long as 30 minutes, possibly an hour. Rimuru exhaled softly, eyes narrowing a little. All right, good to know. Velzard crossed her arms, glancing at Rimuru. Do you think she'll be okay? I'll handle it when she wakes, Rimuru said, voice steady, though his hands twitched slightly. Romulus tilted her head. Better safe than sorry, right? Master, based on her current status, she should regain consciousness in about 21 minutes and 42 seconds, Seal said, calm as ever. Rimuru smirked faintly. Precise as always, Seal. Guy leaned forward again, fingers steepled, eyes piercing. All right, all that aside, Origin. Where do you come from? Explain yourself. Rimuru took a deep breath, voice casual. Same as before, nothing changed. I'm me. That's it. Velzard's eyes narrowed sharply. That's a lie. Rimuru shook his head. No, not lying. Romulus tilted her head, soft but curious. Do you have a reason to hide the truth? Rimuru nodded. Yeah, it's better if no one knows right now. Complicated. Guy exhaled sharply, a hand rubbing his jaw. Fine, we won't ask further. For now. Rimuru leaned back slightly, rubbing the back of his neck, letting out a quiet sigh. Mission successful for now. Kept my origin hidden. Then Guy straightened suddenly, eyes narrowing. I have one question left. Need to ask. Rimuru froze just slightly, a small smirk creeping onto his lips. He already knew the question, but he stayed quiet, letting the moment hang for a second. Velzard tilted her head slightly, watching him carefully. Romulus leaned forward, hands clasped in front of her, curious but calm. Rimuru shifted in his seat, glancing between all 3 of them, feeling the weight of their scrutiny, yet oddly relaxed. Guy's eyes narrowed, leaning back slightly, fingers drumming on the table. All right, so I'll ask straight. What do you intend to do with your power? Because right now, I can't trust you. Especially with power like yours. Romulus tilted her head, lips pressing together thoughtfully. Honestly, I can't really deny that, she said softly, glancing between Rimuru and Guy. Velzard crossed her arms, nodding slowly. Same here. We need some reassurance. Rimuru leaned forward slightly, hands resting lightly on the edge of the stone table. You really don't need to worry about that, he said, calm but sincere. I'm not after control or domination or anything like that. Sure, I have a goal, but it's not something you need to be concerned with, at least, not yet. Guy's brow furrowed. Not yet. What the hell does that mean? Rimuru shrugged lightly, a small, nervous smile tugging at his lips. It's more of a personal goal. Something that, ultimately, benefits the world in some way. So really not your problem. Guy leaned forward, voice low and tense. Not my problem. That's your answer. You think I'm just gonna trust that? I get it, Rimuru said softly, shaking his head. Even if you don't like it, that's all I'm willing to say right now. Romulus gave a gentle nod. It would make you seem more trustworthy if you revealed more, but I'll respect his choice. If he doesn't want to share, that's his right. Velzard's lips pressed into a thin line. If Rimuru wants to keep it to himself for now, fine. Don't push it. Guy let out a long, exasperated sigh. You know, so far I've got nothing from you except your name. Rimuru rubbed the back of his neck, a sheepish smile on his face. Sorry, I respect my privacy, that's all. Romulus smiled faintly, tilting her head. Understandable. We all have secrets we're not ready to share. Velzard's expression softened just a fraction, though her eyes remained sharp. I suppose patience is better than forcing answers. Guy muttered something under his breath but finally leaned back, his posture relaxing slightly. They spent the next 20 minutes in quiet conversation, talking over Milam's recent rampage and the destruction she had caused. Rimuru explained calmly what he had seen in her uncontrolled state, what strategies had worked to restrain her, and why he thought she had been more dangerous. Guy, Velzard, and Romulus all listened intently, interjecting questions here and there, their expressions serious but not hostile. It was casual, almost like discussing a rough day over tea, though the stakes had been far higher. The room was quiet for a few moments when a portal shimmered open again. This time it wasn't rain accompanying misery, it was Milam herself, and she was clutching a large, round egg. She looked small, like a normal 10-year-old girl rather than the daughter of a god, her wide eyes blinking curiously at the room. Romulus leaned forward instinctively. Milam, how are you? Milam didn't answer immediately. Her small hands hugged the egg closer to her chest. Guy straightened, his voice awkward but soft. Oi kid, you okay? Milam pointed at the egg, her voice small but certain. Is this Gaia? All three adults froze for a second, exchanging glances. Velzard raised a brow. Romulus tilted her head. Guy's jaw tensed. Rimuru smiled gently, stepping closer. Yes, it is Gaia. Your pet dragon. I brought him back and rolled him into an egg, so you can have him all over again. Milam's eyes widened, and she stepped up to Rimuru, hugging the egg even closer. Are you Papa? She asked, voice small but curious. Rimuru scratched the back of his head, awkwardly chuckling. Well, not really. You see, I know you're Papa, but I'm not him. Milam frowned slightly, tilting her head. Then why do you feel like Papa? And your hair, if it were black, it'd be just like Papa. Rimuru's lips curved into a small, soft smile. I guess you're right, but still, not him. That's just me. He held out a hand slowly, relaxing. Anyway, how about we just be friends instead? Milam's face brightened instantly, excitement bubbling over. Really? She squealed, almost too loud for the chamber. Yeah, really, Rimuru said, giving a calm, genuine nod. Milam threw herself into his arms, shouting, yay. She clutched both Rimuru and the egg tightly. My first talking friend, she added proudly. Rimuru chuckled softly, looking down at her. Your first friend is Gaia. Milam's small hands tightened on the egg, and she nodded violently. Yes, my first friend is Gaia too. And you. And we're friends forever. She squeezed them both with surprising strength for her size. Guy blinked, letting out a soft whistle. Well, didn't expect that today. Velzard leaned back slightly, lips twitching into a faint smile. She seems genuinely happy. That's a rare sight. Romulus's eyes softened, watching Milam hug them both. I think she needed that. She really did. Guy rubbed the back of his neck, exhaling. Well, seems everyone's accounted for now. I have something in mind I've been thinking about for a long time. Rimuru felt a small shiver run down his spine, a mixture of amusement and anticipation. Yup, it's gonna happen, he thought quietly, a calm grin forming on his face as he watched Milim happily clutching Gaia and holding onto him. Guy leaned back in his chair, looking around the small council chamber, hands clasped behind his head. So seems we're all gathered here. How about we actually form a council? A Demon Lord Council. Velzard tilted her head, one eyebrow raised. Demon Lord, like yourself. Guy smirked. Well, yeah, Milim's officially awakened as a true Demon Lord, and Rimuru here, well, he's already strong enough. Doesn't even need to evolve. So why not? Milim, who had been quietly clutching Gaia's egg in her small hands, suddenly bounced in excitement. Really? I'm a Demon Lord, yay. She threw her arms wide, nearly spinning in circles. I can tell everyone. Rimuru chuckled softly, stepping closer to calm her down. Wait, Milim, hold on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, do you even know what a Demon Lord is? Milim paused mid-spin, frowning slightly, then shrugged. I dunno. Rimuru smiled gently. Okay, let's just say a Demon Lord is a super cool, super strong person who can tell others what to do and keep them safe. Milim's eyes lit up instantly. Oh, that sounds awesome. I want to be one too. She clutched the egg tighter and nearly skipped in excitement. Velzard opened her mouth to deny it, but Milim's shout cut her off. I'm serious. I want to be a Demon Lord. Velzard sighed, her expression darkening slightly as she looked at Guy. If you're thinking of using her for your games, this idea isn't going to happen. Rimuru leaned back, smiling calmly. Don't worry. Milim is not a pawn for games between Guy and Emperor Rudra. I'll make sure of it. Everyone turned their eyes to him. Guy tilted his head, curious. How do you even know that? Rimuru shrugged, a teasing smirk forming. Well, let's just say I did something to Rudra that would make him absolutely pissed off at you. Guy froze mid-gesture. What did you do? Rimuru glanced down, trying not to laugh, his lips twitching. That's a surprise. Guy muttered under his breath, suspicion and irritation mixing. I've got this feeling Rudra's going to go through the same or something similar to what I went through a few weeks ago. His eyes flicked toward Rimuru, who averted his gaze, stifling a laugh, and no one noticed the small grin on his face. Romulus tilted her head, curious. So Guy, can I become a Demon Lord too? Guy blinked, then frowned. Are you sure about that? Romulus nodded confidently. Absolutely. Fine. Guy said with a shrug. You can be one. Velzard let out a long, exasperated sigh. Why does everyone suddenly go along with everything he says? No reason. Romulus and Rimuru chorused casually, keeping their expressions neutral. Velzard rolled her eyes and let out a soft sigh, clearly unamused. Rimuru leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the table. Wait, if we're going to make a proper Demon Lord Council, we need titles. You can't just be a Demon Lord without a title. Guy rubbed his chin. Okay, like what? Rimuru's eyes scanned the room, thoughtful. Well, you already have the Lord of Darkness title, which is cool. That means Milim, Romulus, you two need something too. Romulus tilted her head. Do you have any ideas? Rimuru smiled faintly. Why don't you call yourself Queen of the Labyrinth? As a Demon Lord title, it fits your skills perfectly. Romulus blinked, eyes wide. Yeah, that could work. Wait, how did you even know my skills? She looked genuinely startled but not upset. Milim, unable to contain herself, jumped in with childish enthusiasm. I want a title too. Me. Rimuru laughed softly, looking down at her. All right, your title will be Dragon Princess and Destroyer. Milim's eyes instantly sparkled, and she clapped her hands together. Whoa, that sounds so cool. She didn't fully understand what it meant, but it sounded awesome in her head. Milim immediately turned to Rimuru, bouncing slightly. How about your title? What are you going to call yourself? Guy leaned back, crossing his arms, curious. Yeah, what's he going with? Rimuru tapped his chin thoughtfully, a soft smile on his face. I think I'll call myself Chaos Creator. Velzard and Romulus exchanged glances, both nodding slowly. Oddly fitting, they murmured. Guy smirked. Yeah, kinda matches. Milam clapped her hands, nearly squealing. Perfect. That's perfect for my bestie. She ran over and hugged Rimuru tightly, still clutching Gaia's egg with the other hand. Rimuru chuckled softly, holding her lightly while smiling down at her. The room felt surprisingly warm, filled with quiet laughter and gentle smiles, despite the power they all carried. Guy cleared his throat, leaning forward. All right then, from now on, we'll be the first-generation demon lords of the Demon Lord Council. Everyone nodded in agreement. Romulus smiled faintly. Milam jumped in excitement. Rimuru gave a calm nod and Velzard just sighed, disinterested, leaning back slightly as if resigning herself to the chaos around her. 1600 years later, 16 centuries passed, and honestly, for beings like demon lords, that amount of time was less history, and more like a long, lazy afternoon stretched across generations. Empires rose, nations collapsed, races evolved, borders shifted, and the world kept moving forward in its own messy way, but nothing truly world-ending happened again. That alone was strange, because when demon lords exist, peace is never supposed to last this long. Yet it did, not because the world became safer, but because the balance had changed. The Demon Lord Council, formed so casually back then, quietly became one of the most stabilizing forces the world had ever known. Not heroic, not kind, just overwhelming enough that no one wanted to poke the sleeping monsters at the top of the food chain. Over time, new demon lords began to appear. Not suddenly, not all at once, but inevitably. The first notable addition was Dino. Once one of the primordial angels, Dino had fallen long ago right after the death of Veldanava. Unlike the others, his fall wasn't dramatic. No rebellion, no great betrayal, he simply lost his purpose. With nothing left to believe in, Dino drifted. Slept, watched, existed. Eventually, he became a demon lord almost by accident. He didn't particularly want power. Didn't care about ruling. Didn't even think Milam was worthy of serving. Far too chaotic, far too emotional, far too loud. But he did recognize one thing very clearly. If Milam ever truly lost control again, the world would end. So Dino stayed close, not actively, not responsibly, just nearby enough to interfere if things got catastrophic. He called it, keeping an eye on things. In practice, it mostly meant napping in dangerous places. Thus, Dino, the fallen angel, became known as the sleeping ruler, a demon lord whose greatest trait was that he rarely bothered to wake up. Not long after Dino's rise, two ancient powers collided. Luminous Valentine and Dagruel. Both had existed for ages, but neither had crossed the demon lord threshold until their conflict made it unavoidable. Luminous ruled the shadows of faith, secretly controlling the her nation. A vampire queen who mastered belief, fear, and worship as weapons. Calm, calculating, and deeply pragmatic. Dagruel, on the other hand, was raw power given form. A true giant, born from ancient divinity, whose domain once spanned vast lands. That domain, however, had been obliterated long ago, caught in the aftermath of Milam's rampage and the legendary battle between Guy and Milam. What remained of Dagruel's territory was nothing but a dead wasteland, mana-starved and broken. Dagruel needed resources. Luminous needed security. Their interests clashed, and when beings of that scale clash, the world listens. Their conflict pushed both beyond the line, and both at least one awakened as demon lords almost. Luminous became the Vampire Queen, also known as the Queen of Nightmares, her power rooted in domination of the soul rather than raw force. Dagruel became the embodiment of land itself, earning the title Earthquake, a walking natural disaster whose footsteps could shatter continents. Their ascensions marked a turning point. The demon lords were no longer just monsters of legend. They were becoming a system. The most recent addition came later. Much later. Kazalim. Little was known about Kazalim, including something as basic as gender. Some records said he, others said she, and many simply avoided the question entirely. What everyone agreed on was this. Kazalim was terrifying. A master of curses, decay, and irreversible magic, Kazalim rose to demon lord status through sheer accumulation of malice and control over forbidden arts. Unlike others, Kazalim did not rely on territory or followers. The world itself was the medium. Thus, Kazalim became known as the Curse Lord. Unpredictable, isolated, dangerous. And very real. By this point, the Demon Lord Council had grown into something that quietly ruled the balance of the world. But despite all these additions, one presence remained distant. The fourth first-generation Demon Lord. Unlike Guy, Milam, and Romulus, this one never appeared in person. Never attended Walpurgis. Never showed up to council meetings. Only messages arrived, perfectly timed, perfectly worded, always relevant, as if the sender already knew what the meeting was about. The newer demon lords whispered about it. Some doubted the fourth even existed. Others believed the title was symbolic. A myth, a placeholder for something long gone. But Guy knew better. So did Romulus. So did Milam. They were the only ones who had seen him. And they never corrected the rumors. The title alone was enough. Chaos Creator. A being so elusive that even demon lords debated whether he was real, yet so influential that his absence shaped decisions just as much as presence would have. By now, the structure of the Demon Lord Council was firmly established. At the top stood Guy Crimson, Lord of Darkness, leader of the Demon Lord Council, one of the 4 first-generation Demon Lords, the anchor of balance, the enforcer, the one who ensured no Demon Lord stepped too far out of line. Milam Nava, Dragon Princess and the Destroyer, one of the 4 first-generation Demon Lords, a walking catastrophe wrapped in childlike innocence, feared, adored, and completely impossible to control, yet oddly central to the world's stability. Romulus, Queen of the Labyrinth, Spirit Queen, one of the 4 first-generation Demon Lords, massive in authority, her labyrinth became neutral ground, a place where even Demon Lords played by rules. Chaos Creator, the 4th first-generation Demon Lord, rarely seen, almost mythical, known only by title, a presence that shaped history without touching it. The later generations followed. Dino, Fallen Angel, Sleeping Ruler, Luminous Valentine, Vampire Queen, Queen of Nightmares, Dagruel, True Giant, Earthquake, Kazalim, Curse Lord, and that was just the beginning. Even with only the first and second generations, the balance of power in the world had already flipped entirely. Nations no longer fought wars lightly. Heroes no longer challenged demon lords recklessly. The world had learned restraint not through wisdom, but through fear. The demon lords didn't rule the world. They loomed over it, and somewhere beyond sight, the most dangerous one of them all remained absent, watching, waiting, and letting history move exactly where it needed to go. For now. Meanwhile in Jura Forest, the Jura Forest had changed over the centuries, but at its core, it was still the same wild, ancient place it had always been. Massive trees stretched endlessly into the sky, their canopies layered so thick that sunlight filtered down in soft, broken patterns. Mana flowed naturally here, dense but calm, like the forest itself was breathing. Hidden deep within it, so deep that even most high-ranking monsters would never stumble across it by accident, stood a mansion. It didn't look flashy. No towering spires. No excessive decoration. Just a large, elegant structure built from dark stone and enchanted wood, sitting peacefully among the trees like it belonged there. Multiple overlapping barriers wrapped around it, subtle but absurdly strong. Detection blocking. Space warping. Anti-intrusion. Anti-scrying. Anti-everything. If you didn't already know it was there, you weren't finding it. Period. Inside, things were a lot less serious. Rimuru was sitting comfortably on a couch, legs crossed, one arm resting lazily on the side. He looked relaxed on the surface, but his eyes followed everything happening in the room with practiced awareness. Across from him, Romulus in her adult form, as always, sat floating slightly above the floor, arms crossed, wings folded neatly behind her. She looked composed, dignified, and mildly annoyed. And right in the middle of the room, Milam. Milam was sitting on the floor, surrounded by empty jars. A lot of empty jars. She had honey smeared faintly on her cheek, her expression blissed out as she scooped another handful straight from a fresh jar. Beside her, a small dragon barely bigger than a large cat chirped happily, tiny wings fluttering as it leaned closer. Gaia, newly reborn and very much alive, nudged the jar with his nose. Milam laughed. He, Gaia likes it too. Rimuru stared, silently. Master, Seal said calmly in his mind, Milam Nava has consumed approximately 195 jars of honey within the last 20 minutes. Rimuru's eye twitched. Seal, that feels illegal. It is not, Seal replied instantly. Also, please note that Milam Nava is biologically incapable of suffering negative health effects from excessive sugar intake. I know that, Rimuru muttered internally. That's not the point. Then what is the point? It's just unhealthy vibes, okay. There was a brief pause. Understood. Emotional concern acknowledged. Rimuru sighed and leaned forward slightly. Milam. She looked up instantly, eyes sparkling, honey spoon halfway to her mouth. Maybe slow down on the honey a bit. Milam blinked. Rimuru gestured gently. Too much in one day isn't great. Even if you don't get sick, moderation and all that. Milam's cheeks puffed up instantly. That's not fair. I barely ate anything. Rimuru didn't say a word. He just pointed behind her. Milam turned. There were jars everywhere. Empty. Stacked. Rolled onto their sides. Some cracked. Some suspiciously clean, like they'd been licked. Rimuru spoke flatly. You finished 195 jars. In 20 minutes. Milam froze. That's not a lot, she said weakly. Romulus snorted. That's enough to bankrupt a medium-sized kingdom. Gaia chirped again, crawling into Milam's lap and pressing his head against her stomach. Milam immediately hugged him. See, Gaia's still hungry too. Gaia let out a tiny, pitiful squeak and looked up at Rimuru with big, shiny eyes. Rimuru felt his soul take critical damage. Seal, he said internally, voice strained. This is emotional warfare. Correct, Seal replied. Effectiveness. Extremely high. Milam looked up at him, pouting dramatically. Gaia still clutched in her arms. Please, just a little more. Rimuru stared at them, at the tiny dragon, at Milam's hopeful face. His resistance crumbled instantly. Fine, he sighed, but just one more jar. Milam gasped. Really? Yes, Rimuru said, already summoning another jar. But after this, you're done for today. Milam grabbed it immediately. Yay, you're the best. Romulus groaned, rubbing her temples. You realize you're spoiling her, right? Rimuru slumped back into the couch.